Jenny forgot her laptop today.
Yeah, no problem. Fix it.
I just started powering this one on. So
Just
there were a few in your drawers. I didn't know if these were.
None of them are bound. Yeah, they're all loaners right now,
Okay, perfect.
but nothing's bound, so I'm just waiting for, a user.
Gary, do you need anything?
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
You're good. Water?
Actually, you have any water? That'd be great.
Water?
Thank you. I didn't bring a automatic advance with a laser on it, so
John, do you have one of those appointments?
I don't know. I think there's one in here.
The projector for that one doesn't have a laser pointer on it.
Well, what this means is I think I will bring a table over and hold the computer on the table so I can stand.
On a cart?
A cart would be good too.
Okay, I'll get that just as soon as I get her.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's not cold, but.
No, that's
you know,
perfect.
Wet your whistle.
Yes, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary, where will you be likely standing? Just so I can line up the camera.
I think depending on where the cart is, I'd like to, because I'm a right-handed person, so
Okay.
how if I stand here,
Perfect.
and then that way I could have the cart here.
I'm gonna move my camera a little bit further back.
Morning. And which class were you doing this project for? Okay, Mr. Radow's class?
No,
Okay, all right, good. Well, all right, good morning, Mike.
Gary, how are you?
Good to see you.
Chad, Gary was going to
No.
be presenting
Oh,
on the Elementary World Language Program
Is this
here
your
from Lake Ridge Elementary. Hopefully the people at Island Park are hearing my
Did you talk
voice.
to Allison Roram at all?
Yeah, she did.
One second, I'm just making sure Jennifer can hear you okay.
Yeah, I didn't see your. I will sign your email and you got forwarded to me. So good. Ready to be done. Yeah. Thank you again for making this happen. Makes sense.
Makes sense, yes.
21st century.
Exactly. We could do this.
We should be able to do this. I know, it's not like, I know the TED Talks never have trouble. They have some tech support, but
They have a-
a little bit
they
more
have-
money behind
We
them.
have an A-team of tech people,
I think
team.
so.
as
Oh,
in-
we've got the A-team
Wait
here,
a
right?
second,
John
wait a
and I.
Wait, I didn't mean
What were we
that. I didn't
saying?
mean that. I meant that we have an A-team of a single person.
Yeah.
They have an A-team of an army of people.
There you go.
That's what I meant. Oh, Today's the 8th? Today's the 7th.
Today's the 7th.
Amy, how are you this morning?
Good, how are you?
Low battery.
Oh,
That's not a good sign.
We've got power. We can get you power.
I use this all day yesterday, that's why.
I know. That's like my phone.
Yeah.
I left my phone at home yesterday, I was like,
Yeah, it's hard, you don't feel connected.
but you know what I had? You know,
You need a power trip? Yes. It's the old one, so that's good.
Yeah.
It's much longer. And the reception is at really space. My brother doesn't have an apple. Okay, so on that day, he's going to it's not. So, then my mom found out because she was in some messaging.
Good morning, Lake Ridge teachers and staff. Just a reminder, we do have our meeting this morning in the library here in about 5 minutes at 8 o'clock. I'll see you there.
Morning. Good morning.
Anyway, so she got this thing with her. But she's this morning, all of our meetings. She sent pictures on. But now that I know, so, hi Danielle. How are you? Good.
I didn't email you back here because I was waiting to.
That's okay.
I don't put email yet. When it is.
It'd be nice to have extra right. Because
Yeah.
she needs it.
Yeah. Like
She looked, she came from lunch. She works. She just.
That's
Did you get a yes back from the school committee?
It sounds like,
Yes.
it sounds like.
Yeah, and then I've got the, so I've got your
Switch slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have
Yeah.
this slide.
And what I'll do is see where you are.
So will they have, when I open up to questions, will they be able, is there a camera there? They will not.
You see, I think that's the difference made. And then they got new.
Will they be able to?
Yeah. Right, so it's-
Okay. Gotcha.
They may have a question, so you can just repeat it
Yeah.
and then answer.
You want to wire?
You know, all I have is, I don't have the,
Oh, you don't
I
have
don't
that.
have a mic, but,
Will they be able to hear?
yeah, so that's what we did the test.
Okay.
Right, so we tested audio, Jennifer said that she could hear you just fine.
Yeah.
Even when you're on the slide, you can also hear your audio over the slide.
So this is.
Yes.
Morning, these are taken.
Yeah. And that's.
I'll
and
take
that's
notes
what
here.
Are
I'm gonna sit on the table.
We're kindergarten.
Okay.
And then later in the day.
Absolutely.
So Andrew, one more thing to wire me to. Connect me with.
What's going on, right?
I'll see what.
Well, that'll let
I just can't read. I wonder if I could just. Well, yes, I have to turn it. Sure. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming this morning, this early. We don't typically start at 8 in the library. I'm just getting into day 2 of a cold, so I apologize if my voice isn't going to project all the way to the back. I have some water. We are on a Skype with Island Park. So good morning, Island Park. Thank you for your agreement to have our discussion by Skype today. When we get to a Q&A, Island Park, I will repeat questions that I hear, or rather when I open up to questions from you, I will repeat your questions so Island Park can hear those questions and answers as well. So Fred Rundle is over at West Mercer this morning, and I'm here with you at Island Park to share information about where we've come with our study of world languages, Spanish language in elementary school. So with that, I'm going to share some information with you, and we'll take questions sort of at the end. So we provided a survey. This is the second survey that I gave to staff and to community, and students took the survey as well. And 17% of staff and 3% of community did not agree with adding world language, so we had fairly strong support. Spanish was either supported or reported neutral by over 90% of staff and community, and 90% of community and staff agreed that a language program should start in preschool or elementary school. So that is what we're trying to do here. More results from the survey: 89% of elementary parents support the language program. 65% of elementary staff support the program if the workday remains at 7.5 hours. And by the way, I never intended that the workday would increase. So the workday would always remain at 7.5 hours, regardless of the instructional day for students. 46% of elementary staff supported adding 15 minutes to the end of the day. And what caused me to wonder about the discrepancy in the amount of support that dropped was I was unclear if respondents assumed that the workday might increase. So I didn't know if people were becoming less supportive, worried about what would happen to the workday. That was something that I didn't probe further in the survey. And it was unclear if respondents were aware that additional planning time would be added to existing planning time. So I wasn't sure about why that number dropped. And potentially during some Q&As, you can share that with me. If you could hold questions until the end, because I might get there. So just jot down your question. And I don't know if we could have maybe a bank of lights that could go off. That way people in the back could see the screen more clearly. So the whole notion of Spanish for students, why Spanish? Well, we found that it is optimal for Spanish language instruction in elementary school to be at about 70 minutes. 70 to 80 is optimal. That's when students are really conversant by the time they reach the 5th grade. Spanish supports achievement for students beyond second language. So it's really about enhancing cognitive skill as well. So there's research where they had a control group and a study group, and the students who studied a second or third language in elementary school actually increased cognitive ability as they move through their elementary years. Develops a more positive attitude, we think, from research that children who become aware of a second or third language have a more positive feeling about people who speak another language or who are different ethnically or have differences than they. And we believe that having a language program in elementary school is really a gateway to other languages in secondary school. So from our Glastonbury visit, we found that students often would double up on a language. Not all of them, of course, but students who were had a precondition to love language would then double up and potentially keep Spanish and add. In Glastonbury, it might have been Japanese or it might have been Russian that they picked. So they would have 2 languages by the time they reached high school. So we thought about the FLES model. FLES is foreign language in elementary schools, and immersion, which means that the teacher is fluent in both languages, the target language and English. And I discarded the immersion program because I don't have a bank of teachers who are bilingual. And so I opted for the model where I bring in a Spanish language teacher to be the specialist, similar to PE and music. We don't expect classroom teachers to be teachers of music and PE. We bring specialists in. And so this would be of the same type. We would be adding 10 minutes to the rotations. Okay, so instead of a 30-minute rotation, it would be a 40-minute rotation. We are also exploring that each school would have a language center, but the language teacher would typically come into the teacher's classroom and use the room, meaning that there isn't any time lost with you marching your students down to the classroom for music or PE, and then you picking those students up. So for those of you in that concrete sequential mode, want to calculate the number of added minutes that you would get from not having to bring your students there, that's something that you can think about. Because there was some benefit in having the teacher of the Spanish program come into the classroom and minimize the disruption or the transition. However, we also found that having a classroom with supplies and materials, there were times when the children did come into a classroom with all of the materials that were available in Spanish for the children to see as well. We also, so currently students receive 180 minutes of PE and music over a 3-week period. And this would become a 200-minute. So we'd be increasing PE time and music contact time by adding the additional 10 minutes of planning time. So for library and art, I want you to hold that thought because that's going to come up here in just a moment. Library and art rotations are building level decisions. And presently, we have an art specialist who is rotating among 3 buildings. And the plan is to bring an art specialist north and an art specialist south, so that we would have library as sort of, I'll call a wild card. And I use the term wild card for a specific reason. And we'll call art a wild card, where a teacher might receive additional time in the library for their students, and a teacher might receive additional time with an art specialist for her students, or his students. So I want you to know that we haven't thought through exactly, well, what would that look like? Because Fred and I want to give that back over to a school team to figure out, well, how would we use a library or art rotation? How would we think about that, particularly with interventions or time that we would want to spend with specific students in our classrooms if we sent everyone to the library, or if there are a whole bunch of options on how we could use art in library. So I did want to think about figuring all of that out in advance. That's something that we want to leave to buildings to figure out. So we want to, of course, factor in the number of sections, defining what need we have, considering cross-teaming support and collaboration. So this is a topic that we want to turn over to a school team. Planning time. I talked a few minutes about the fact that planning time would be increased from 30 minutes presently to 40 minutes. The 3 specialist rotation coincide with the fact that once the schools have been downsized, the majority of the time, there will be 3 teachers at each grade level. We know there will be some anomalies, but we plan that there will be 3 Ks, 3 1s, and that matches nicely with the specialists rotation as well. Opens the door for common planning time. And that time lost at the end of the school day is added back into the school day. So what would the day look like? So we thought about, and these are tentative, and you noticed that the survey spoke about 15 minutes, right? And when you look at that grid, what number of minutes do you see I've added? 10 minutes, right? Not 15 minutes. So this is a rough estimate. We presently have a school start of 9:10, right? That's what time school, the warning bell has already occurred, and class activities begin at 9:10. Is that an accurate statement? I'm seeing lots of heads nod. So the reason why it is on the slide at 9:10 and 3:40 is because there's a competing problem that I have with high school and their start time and end time, and what happens on early release Wednesday. So let me just take a moment and explain that to you, because then you'll see the relationship to the time that school starts. So what time of day on Wednesday, yesterday, did your students leave? What time? 2 o'clock. And what time, Mr. Radow, do high school students leave on Wednesday? So Mr. Radow said 2:05. So we couldn't have a 5-minute change on Wednesday with Northwood Elementary departing at 2 o'clock and the high school departing at 2:05. You see the problem there? So we would have to do something differently. So one idea would be to have everyone go to late start, and I don't like that idea. Mostly I don't like the idea because it would mean that elementary students wouldn't start until about what time of day?
Lunch.
About lunchtime. So someone said about 10:45 in the morning. That would not be an optimal solution. So I thought about asking the high school to start later in the morning. So if the high school started later in the morning, then there's a plan. This is all theoretical. I'm just talking out loud with you about possibilities that the high school might start on late start Wednesday at 8:45. And they would end their day at 2:50. Okay, so the issue is, could I have high school start at 8:45 and elementary school start at 9:10? So our transportation consultant is studying that. He might require 30 minutes of time. That would mean that elementary schools would start at 9:15 and possibly end at 3:45. So this is tentative. I've got to find out if the traffic consultant, and here we're really talking about student safety, because as the students are walking from their neighborhoods to their bus stops, I don't want high school students racing to school. So I have to be sure that there's enough gap time to be able to have kids walk to school at a time that is safe for them. So there's a lot of things in play. So this timing is tentative. It's to show you that we can conceivably add the increased specialist time, add the 3 rotations, keep everything within a 7.5-hour workday. So see if I wanted to say any more about that. So the student day, the teacher workday would start at 8:30. I wanted to make that point clear. So if the school day begins, the workday rather, begins at 8:30, and the student day begins at 9:10, is there any change from what our present practice is? No. If the school day started at 9:15, there would be a 5-minute change. But how many of you were here a couple of years ago and remember that we used to start school at 9:15? Raise your hand if you were here then. So about half of you remember that would just go back to another standard, another time that we presently had when school started at 9:15. So the teachers would still have that morning time to do what they would do and plan and do whatever their principals had asked them to do on grade level teams and so on. And they would get some expanded time with a common time when the specialists were taking the children from that grade level. So, language expectations beyond the Spanish classroom. So what I'm asking us to work on next is each school would work to build the vision for language inclusion. That doesn't mean that each school is going to come up with designing the program. What the idea is that we have children who become conversant in a second language beginning at 5 or 6 years old. They would have about 60 to 70 minutes of instruction each day. On an every other day basis in a rotation. There are lots of variants to this, by the way, because when this committee, which I'll talk about in a moment, starts to wade into the master schedule, you'll see that there are some options for specialists that will have some open time. And one idea might be for a specialist, like the Spanish specialist, to join the PE teacher and to combine classrooms and to have Spanish, to have PE in Spanish, for example. And that would increase the number of minutes in that 3-week period, so that we would have actually the PE teacher being the expert in physical education, activity, and all of the things that go into the lesson, and the Spanish language teacher providing the second language words on what those movements are and what we're doing as they actually can, because kinesthetically we've learned is how children learn language best, is when they're actually moving and saying language at the same time. Certificated Spanish teachers would teach students, classroom teachers would be involved, similar to the current collaborations that we have with PE and music. What we saw in Glastonbury, is it Megan, are you here this morning? So Megan attended, Brooke, excuse me. Megan is at Island Park, forgive me, hello Megan at Island Park. Attended our visit at Glastonbury. We saw that in the classrooms, the teachers' classrooms, that they had labels in both Spanish and English. so that the students who were in the classes all day would notice these Spanish words that were on the walls in their gen ed classroom. We noticed dual language calendars, because that's a big activity for elementary kids, learning the months of the year, the dates, learning tomorrow, what day is tomorrow, what day was yesterday. Those are the kinds of things that you do if you're a primary teacher with English already. Students work in hallways. Spanish was very much a specialist and not a general education or special education core responsibility. So it resided with the specialist who assessed students. Next steps. So what we would like to see happen is a small team work with your principal to look at, because the next piece is diving into a master schedule. Fred and Amy and a few others have actually put together logistically what a schedule could look like, so we know that it's workable. But now we need you to come along in our thinking. So you need to investigate and see what happens when we reduce the staff by a significant number, when we move 100 and some students out of Lake Ridge and we reduce the number of staff or faculty. What happens to the master schedule? It opens up lots of possibilities. So the next step would be for schools to work with their principal in these 4 teams. So not one big team, but small school teams. So let Jenny know if you would like to work on this committee to look up what a master schedule could look like. The common planning time, by the way, we now have numbers of rising first graders, rising second graders for Lake Ridge. We know how many sections there will be. We know about how many kindergarten sections there will be. So we already have projections on the numbers of sections at each grade level. Based on that information, what would a master schedule then look like with a 3 specialist rotation? And then what are the workload issues? Let's identify what they might be. And so we've done some thinking about what impacts there are, and we want you to go through that same exercise of sort of a metacognitive, well, what does this mean in my teaching? Teachers and learning services will start curriculum writing and planning for a 1-year rotation. So this is a curriculum responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the classroom teachers. It would be the responsibility, frankly, of the team that we would hire. And that is not an easy step, which is to go find qualified teachers who are endorsed to teach elementary K-12 Spanish. That will not be an easy find. So the sooner that we get started on that, the better, because there are lots of schools in the country that actually go to certain parts of this country and potentially are island communities looking for teachers who have dual language certification. They are certified in both English to teach as well as Spanish, because they have to be fluent, of course, in English in order to obtain this certification. So we're not intending to go to Mexico or to Argentina or to Spain. We're really looking to find teachers in our country, potentially in Puerto Rico, somewhere in our United States, that we can find 4 qualified, language endorsed teachers to teach our students. And they would be responsible for developing the program. What we learned in Glastonbury was that there is no company that produces an elementary curriculum. And the elementary curriculums are weak if companies produce them. So it's largely, it's something that has to be developed. And Glastonbury has been working on this for over 50 years, 56 or 58 years. So all of their materials are copyrighted. And I don't know if we could pay for some of those materials, but it's the kind of thing that if you're a primary teacher, you make a lot of materials that you develop those materials. This is not rocket science either. It's not, but it is time consuming to do that. So that was my overview, and now I want to take questions, and I will repeat questions for our Island Park staff who may not be able to hear the question. But let's start with a set of general questions, and if I could have someone take some notes of things that might be on a list of topics to study and bring back, that would be really helpful. Do I have a volunteer that would take a list of, okay, thank you very much, Brooke. Brooke has volunteered to take a list of topics that we'll want to bring back to you as a staff. So, Megan, you had your hand up way earlier. Did I answer your question?
Well, I'm gonna actually speak to your question, which is you had talked about how you weren't sure if the staff had
Oh.
a proper understanding
Gotcha.
of the time. And I think the concern I've heard isn't that we wouldn't get the planning time, but rather that by encroaching on the time before or after school, it's going to manufacture more time that we need to be on campus because of meetings, because of, meetings with staff,
Sure.
with teams, with parents, students who have needs as far as their behavior is out of line, you need to follow through on those things. It allows us less time
Sure.
during the day to deal with that. And then the second part of that, I think, because it is kind of a two-pronged problem, is that when kids are in class somewhere else in the school, they're still really our responsibility. So if they have a problem in another specialist class, we are still responsible for that. We need to communicate with parents about what that trouble is, or, if they have a health issue or whatnot, they still do come back to us. And so specialist times are great for planning sometimes, but also are times that we deal with those things that you can't necessarily categorize.
Okay, so this, okay. I understand the comment about that. My reaction about what happens in a PE class, if there's an issue, there is a PE teacher who would be responsible if there was an incident to get back to the family. I know that you would want to know about that because you have the child the rest of the day, and you'll want to be aware of the challenges that they have with their classmates, if there was a fight, or if there was an argument, or there was an issue. So this does add a complication in a sense to that, because it does bring another teacher in. It's not just the music specialist or the PE specialist, it's now the Spanish language specialist. So it is another potential opportunity issue. So Island Park, I'm sorry I didn't repeat Megan's question or comment, was that she wasn't sure if people's support for the program dropped, wanted to let me know why it may have dropped. It may have dropped because of the reduced amount of before or after school time that would need to be used to deal with student issues that might arise from students being in a specialist classroom, for example, or a parent meeting. So Megan, I'm going to go to other people. So let's not have a one-on-one. Let's give other people a chance to ask questions. Thank you. Yes.
So what you're saying is that increase in specialist time, the calculation is across 3 specialists: music, PE, and Spanish. And then art and library are to come out of other academic times as is decided by the building.
That's correct. That is true. Right now we have library once a week as part of a rotation. Is that correct? That's correct. So
yeah,
what
so that actually adds, if you still call them specialists, that actually takes more time away from the time they're in the classroom, because you're increasing those 3 that you're taking out, library and music.
So the question or the comment that's being made is that library presently is a planning period type of intervention or a specialist, where the teacher is using that time to plan. And in this model, the library time would become part of literacy. It would become part of the literacy block. And what I'm saying to you as teachers is, I want you to decide the frequency of when you choose to use the librarian as your teaching partner. When do you want the children to come and get their books? Do you want that to happen before school and say it's not part of my literacy block? Or do you as the classroom teacher want to make some time in your literacy block to go visit the library, because getting a book is important? So the art and the library then become parts of your curriculum. So your responsibility presently is to teach art, right? That's part of what, because we don't release you when the art teacher comes. And this is a similar model where the art specialist would come with you or in the classroom with you, although it gives you some opportunity, some new options. It gives you the option of potentially, this is an idea now, working with a group of students that needed more help in some area that you felt was more important than potentially their exploration in art that day. You might create a differentiated small group instruction potentially that day. But art is your decision. You get to decide when the art specialist comes. You would get to decide when you go visit the library. Lucy.
So kind of to piggyback on that, so then the librarian, her role is just now very different than, I mean, it's not so much as guiding a class, right? Like the classroom teacher, right? So do you see that?
It could be, Lucy. I think you're close enough to the microphone for.
They can hear.
They could hear, good.
Yeah.
So it could be. You could keep the schedule the same. If you wanted to go with your students to the library, you could and be with them, and they could be your teaching partner that day. You could do that. If you chose, this is part of the building decision, if you chose to say, you know, I'd like to offer additional planning time. I'm making up a story here. So I want you to know I'm making this up. I'm not saying that this is what you would do. But if you, in the building team, you might say, I think that would be a great additional time for me to go and do something to develop a lesson for my classroom while my students are at the library. That would be something that you would decide as a building team in conjunction with your principal. Okay, I had a hand up here.
Yeah. Well, I think along with that, I'm trying to understand if by comparing it to existing sessions or times like technology where we have an open time but really the instruction versus art where it's a less sort of rotation. But I think I'm less than a teaching partner because I'm in the classroom.
Yes.
But I don't develop the curriculum to deliver instruction.
Correct. And
So I'm kind of trying to understand where this library idea maybe leads or that's.
so that would be some, so the question that is asking is, I'm sorry, your first name?
Yeah.
Anna is asking is, so who would be responsible for planning the library visit that day? Who would be responsible for that lesson plan? My off-the-cuff thought is it wouldn't change. It would be the librarian responsible, just the way the librarian is presently responsible for organizing a lesson for students that day, in conjunction with you. What's different, what's slightly different, is it may not be your planning time, where you just sort of walk away. It may be where you and the librarian are now teaching partners, because you planned a unit with the librarian to do some research potentially, or you've asked the librarian to gather some books in the social studies unit that you want to be there for. So it could be part of additional planning. Again, that's something that's related to workload and something that your building team would want to talk about. But the librarian is another person in your school who has a responsibility to work with you and with your students on instruction. So our librarian is not like the public librarian, right? Because the things in this library are designed to do what? Support the curriculum. So it's curriculum based. This is still part of our learning program. Is there another person who hasn't spoken yet that would like to offer? Yes.
So I have a question and then a concern. And the question is it with 100% certainty that this program is starting in the fall? And my concern is if we start this Spanish program before it has truly been developed, and it's clear there's been a lot of work and research.
Yes.
And time spent researching this. My concern is that if we begin this before it's truly ready, the teacher buy-in is not going to be there.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
the opportunity for success.
Yes. Yes.
Won't be
Yes.
what it could be if we give it more time and truly,
Yes.
devote more than a spring or
Yes.
several months or a summer.
Yes.
To tease out some of these things because there's
Yes.
a lot of anxiety and a lot of nervousness
Yes.
with
Yes.
teams changing.
Yes.
And and school opening, so
Yes.
just something.
Yes, yes. So the question was a two-part, it was a two-part comment. One was a question and the other was commentary about an opinion about whether or not the district should go forward with implementing this. Are we going to start for sure in the fall? Well, nothing is for sure in life, right? I am planning to go now and see if I can find 4 people that I could hire in enough time to develop a program. So I am going to begin recruiting to see if I can find 4 qualified people that will be able to be hired this school year, at some point in this school year, potentially by April, to begin developing the program ready for fall. So if I didn't find those 4 people and it is now summer, then I likely will delay. I would likely not want to start a program that will not get off the ground successfully. Your buy-in is important. I want this to be something that you believe is good for students. I want you to think about what impacts does this have for the children that you serve? And what role do you have in that? And the role that you have presently about delivering Spanish language instruction is 0. It's not your responsibility. I'm not asking you to be the teacher. If I were to bring an immersion program to the district, then you, as the classroom teacher, would have a lot of responsibility in developing a program. But I'm not asking you to do that. But I am cognizant of wanting to be sure that this gets off the ground and it lands safely. But I've been studying this for a few years, and it's taken a lot of investigation to see if there are any fatal flaws, and I don't see a fatal flaw. So I'm still in that zone of now moving forward. Your hand is next.
Yes, I'm going to go back to Megan's concern about the length of school day, why welcome 10 extra minutes with the students. I am concerned about the meeting times. They're going to be starting later. And as she said, manufacturing extra time that we actually need to be on campus for special education meetings, for example.
Okay.
Both for the special education staff, but also I know a lot of the teachers in this room have multiple kids with these IEPs in their classroom.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how we might manage that without staying.
Okay. So the question is, how would you manage your time if the end of your day when students leave is shortened? Is that a fair way to, because the beginning, let me hang on. To clarify, the beginning part of your day, how many of you have IEP meetings during the beginning part of your day? Raise your hand if they're during the beginning part of your day. So the beginning part of your day doesn't change at all.
Right, but we often schedule meetings after school or tomorrow.
So it's the end of the day that potentially would change. So yes, that is a consideration. So you're right. There would be some additional time if a meeting had to be scheduled at 3:50 or 4 o'clock, and there would be some additional time for you to be there for that. Yes, that would occur.
You mentioned fatal flaw. I think, as you know, Gary, I sent my daughter to a school that's a dual immersion Spanish program.
Yes.
So I'm a huge supporter
Yes.
of young kids learning Spanish.
Yes.
And I see the benefits in it. Yet, we know that we are in a period of time where there's a crisis in school funding. And our schools have been underfunded for many, many years. And
Yes.
it's a statewide issue, and it's a very local issue. And we personally, in our buildings, have been told over and over again that there is no money, that we see, we've had staffing cuts in special education. We have huge caseloads for our counselors and SLPs. We have less discretionary funds at the
Yes.
building level.
Yeah.
We have huge numbers in our high cap program. My concern is, even though it's great to be able to teach Spanish,
Yes.
just as it would be great if I could get a massage every week.
Yes.
That would be really good for my health,
Yes.
just as it'd be really good
Yes.
for kids to learn Spanish.
Yes.
This is a lousy time.
Yes.
To
You and I
start
have to,
a new
Tony,
program.
you and I have to just disagree about timing. And so our community is donating $1 million. They've given us actually more. They've given us 1.6 million more than the state is funding. And yes, the state does have to increase its funding. They have to. They're under a court order to do that. And so I'm aligning things in such a way that believes that next year we are getting more funding than we had this year. So I guess you and I disagree. Wouldn't equate Spanish language program with getting a massage. I don't think those are equal, although I do see your point. I see your analogy there. But I think we have to agree to disagree. Yes.
First of all, I want to echo Tom's comments and just say, I agree. I am in full support of the idea.
Yes.
I feel like the time is not now. But my question really has to do with the results of the survey and buy-in.
Yes.
You know, you said on the results that there was, what, 89%?
90%?
90% already support.
Yes.
But in the results of the survey, it says that contains neutral.
Yes.
How is neutral a part of support? Couldn't you equally argue that neutral is the same as not supporting it? I mean,
yes.
How did neutral go into the same category? So
yes.
What are the actual results?
I did not create a forced response by not including neutral to give people an opportunity to say, well, it doesn't matter. I can go either way. And when we include that, we include the phrase neutral over 90%. It means that people who are neutral say, well, I don't disagree with that. It's not, I'm not going to agree or disagree. It's okay with me. In other words, if you did it, it would be okay. If you didn't do it, it would be okay. So the way the 90% was framed. So I'm asking for more things that you as teachers feel you don't either have. What are the obstacles for you to support this? Tell me what some of the, Lisa.
I just want to know if contact time is the same. I saw the 10 minutes and I want to make sure that I'm not losing 10 minutes on my course.
You're actually increasing contact time. So when you.
Because of the library and art thing?
No, it's because of the additional minutes. When you look at the number, when you get to your school teams and you look at the schedule, you actually are going to have more face time with students. More face time than less face time. When you get to be with your group, when you work together and you go through the number of minutes, you'll see how that happens. So Island Park, the question was, will I receive fewer minutes of face time or less minutes of face time with students because of the change with library? And I said we will increase the number of face time minutes with students. Yes?
I just like thought or a question. When we roll out these new programs, has it ever occurred to anyone to maybe pilot a grade level to see if it works? Or, you know, that's one Spanish teacher in one grade, maybe a lower grade, because you have to change the curriculum as they move up in grade levels anyway. Just one pilot program, maybe even one school, just to the whole district to buy in all at one time.
Sure. So the question is, have you thought about a pilot program where only one grade would have the Spanish language intervention? The problem with that is the time that you have, the time of the school day has to change. In other words, in order to provide the additional minutes, everything would still have to change in order to have the pilot work. Otherwise, I could bring in a teacher and that time would come away from, if everything stayed the same, it would come away from your present face time with your students for all of your other content areas. Yes?
I'm just concerned about the 10 minutes on the end of the day.
Yes.
We have so many children that get picked up early as it is now, like 3:10, this place is buzzing with constantly into the classroom.
Yes.
You know, send the kid out for dismissal.
Yes.
To get to doctor appointments who, you know, the dentists want to close at 4 o'clock, the kid has to be there for orthodontist.
Sure.
Activities, because we're on the end of the island, they need to get ahead of the buses, I think, is the bulk of the problem.
Yep.
So then they're gonna miss even 10 minutes more at the end of the day.
Good, so whoever's taking notes, that's a good thing for me to raise with parents and to talk about the impacts with people leaving early to schools.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Tani was saying. I know last year, since I've been here, the Bridge the Gap has always happened.
Yes.
Last year was a huge concern of whether or not it was going to happen. And we didn't know if we were going to have assistant principal positions. That was kind of in waiting. So I guess my piggyback to Tani's question is, what happens, God forbid, that we don't bridge the gap?
Yes.
We might bridge it this year and we
Yes.
hire all of our teachers and we have a great Spanish immersion
Yes.
program. And then
Yes.
2 years down the line,
Yes.
the funding kind of starts to drop.
Funding this year than we did last year, and we're projected to have more funding again. We would have to then pare program down, and likely this would be the first program to go because it's not a state requirement, and it would be the first we would have to pare down and probably eliminate, not in its in partial form, but probably the entire program. So we would not have a second language program, a FLES model here in Mercer Island. That would be my decision to protect all of the other programs that we have on Mercer Island. Who hasn't spoken yet? Yes.
I just have one concern, I guess, in terms of there being a sub shortage right now.
Yes.
With adding Spanish teachers. I'm curious, you already said it's a very specific.
Yes.
Group of 4 teachers.
Yes.
And that would be challenging to hire. So I'm curious what that would look like if one of them were to be out.
Yes.
And I feel like sometimes something just gets canceled from the day, and
Yes.
I think that just makes it.
Right. I think Island Park could hear that question.
I think so.
They could. Okay, so we would do the same that we would with PE. If our PE teacher were ill, we would not expect the classroom teacher to teach PE that day. We wouldn't cancel PE. We would have a substitute teacher come in who may not be qualified to teach PE, but who takes the PE class, who takes the music class. The same thing would occur in Spanish language. We found the same issues at Annie Wright Academy. When the teacher was ill, they were able to find another person to come in. The substitute plans would be different because there would be some audio visual. There are audio tapes. There's curriculum that's both digital, where students are getting both the English and the dual language together. So those would be, we would not cancel Spanish that day. Another question of someone who hasn't spoken, yes.
Yeah, so I guess mine kind of comes down to like the funding issue.
Yes.
In the sense of, I'm recognizing that there seems to be money coming in.
Yes.
From the state. And we've been like the messaging the last couple of years in each building, I'm imagining, has been that when we lose all these parents, like we're gonna lose all these things. We're not gonna be able to do all the enrichment activities and all the special programs and field trips that you want to do because your funding is going to be less because the PTA won't be able to raise as much money to do these said items, right?
Okay.
So I'm looking at, we're gonna have to take a.
So you're predicting, so just,
I'm imagining.
You're
But
making.
we've been told that very 90% sure that if we're gonna lose 100+ families,
Okay.
the amount of money that we're going to be able to raise
Okay.
is going to decline to be able to do these other things. So when you asked about an obstacle.
Yes.
So we say we get this Spanish program.
Yes.
And yet all the things that we have
Yes.
loved doing with our
Yes.
kids, field trips or extra enrichment pieces or programs.
Yes.
We have to lose those.
Yes.
And yet we've got money to do,
Yes.
so I think that might be an aspect of some aim.
Sure. I first, let me say, I'm very sorry to learn that. I'm sorry to learn that you as teachers have been told by some group that money is going to go away. I don't see it that way, and maybe I'm just the eternal optimist. I see that we're going to have the same pie of money, the same amount that will be divided over 4 schools, unless a person predicts that a strip of the geography contains the biggest givers, and those are the people who are moving, because the rest of the demographic are not giving, meaning that your actual revenue is going to go down. I personally don't, I think that's a bleak and a very pessimistic view, potentially even a scare tactic.
But we've been told that, and we've been told to be very weary for next year. Like our budget has gone down for field trips.
Yes.
Our budget has gone down for uprights, for all of these things that we really value.
Even for the computer lab and
Yes.
color printer.
Yeah, and so I'm just curious, where is that money then? Because to me, I don't want to lose those things. Those
Yes.
things are very valuable to
Yes.
our program.
So let me make a promise to you. In Island Park, this promise is the same. I'm learning about what you're saying for the first time. I'm not aware that your PTA or potentially Island Park's PTA might drop funding for some reason. Now, will funding drop? Of course, because the number of families is going to change. So you're going to have fewer families. But the amount of money that could be divided by the number of students would theoretically be the same. The promise that here's the exchange that the school district has made with our parent community for probably 30 years. And the trade is, look, if you pay for field trips, and field trips is really part of the curriculum, by the way. It isn't, field trips are not enrichment. They are part of our curriculum, right? So if you had a field trip and it's a parent-supported trip and the parents aren't supporting the trip, go through your building principal and find the district to pay for your curriculum-based trip. I don't.
That's not the message Gary, I'm so sorry, but that's so not the message we've gotten since even last spring.
Yeah.
In fact, it's worried me a lot because I know in third grade, we have what I believe is a really strong program, and we have great enrichment, and we have amazing field trips that I do believe are part of the curriculum, but we've been told, several times, not to expect this to continue because of the families that we're losing and because of the funding that we're getting.
So I'd like to go offline with you and work with Jenny to figure out who's sending the message. I'd like to bring it to the PTA council because I don't think that's constructive. I don't think that builds confidence. I think that is a tactic. I think there is some discord in this part of the community. And the discord is, this is the only parent community who will be sending children to an existing elementary school. You understand that, right? The other families that will be moving schools will be going to the new school. So this is a group of, and there's a large number, about 80. So this is a big group. This is also the end of the island that it doesn't have a new school. And I predict that there will be a lot more angst when the community sees this brand new school called Northwood, because will be a state-of-the-art elementary school. It will be. I walked the school just Monday, and it is an amazing facility. So I predict that there will be issues that will surface until this part of the island says, when do we get our new school too?
Yeah.
Right? So I think these are all factors, and I'm just sorry to learn that this tactic has been used to cause you concern. So I could see where you would say, well, wait a minute, before you go buy a Spanish teacher, will you assure me that the things that that's the issue?
Yeah, that's
your issue. So if you could somehow, Brooke, encapsulate that, I'm sorry that's
no,
a
thank you.
message.
We just wanted.
Just talk to me straightly give me the straight skinny on the issue. Who hasn't spoken yet and would like to share?
I have two questions just to clarify. One is what happens to the technology program, because they have the computer lab, I don't know if that, I don't recall that.
Well, what happens to it?
Yeah.
Nothing. It stays exactly as it is and you use it. Could you
It's
repeat the
on
question? What
specialist.
happens to the technology lab and the use of the time? Is it sort of connected to time?
Yeah, because
Nothing happens.
this will use a specialist, so it wasn't included in the specialist.
No,
It's not a specialist.
it's not a specialist today.
We have to, we go in.
We have to.
Right, so nothing changes with the technology piece. Nothing changes there. Who hasn't spoken and would like to
Oh, I
offer?
had a second one, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
And then in terms of the FaceTime, just to clarify, again, I'm not a teacher, so I don't know if they probably have a better perspective on that. But is the FaceTime increase because the teachers in the classroom, the Spanish teacher is in there? And is that used as their planning time as well? Because when the kids are in class.
No, the FaceTime issue will come up when you look at the number of present minutes and new minutes. And Jenny will have the spreadsheet for you and will be able to show you mathematically how the FaceTime increases and the number of minutes. It's not a great increase. It's not a big number, but it is a number that increases, yes.
To go off that question, because it sounds like it's come up a few times, is there like a mock schedule that you guys have that you're recommending that we can see?
Yes, so the question is, so I know that you guys have done some work to be able to determine whether there's more or less FaceTime. Is there a mock schedule that we could share with you? Absolutely, yes. We've come up with a mock schedule that we could share with you and the team so you could see what is present and what would be new. So we will be able to do that with the school team. One last question, final question, yes.
When you came out to us, I think last school year,
Yes.
introduced before the survey, I remember you said that the plan would be, just like you said today, to add a second visual arts instructor.
Yes.
to the north and south.
Yes.
And in between that meeting and this meeting, I've been told that it's not planned in our preliminary budget for the next school year. So just to clarify, you're saying there.
Well, I'm the CEO, right?
Right.
So, okay.
So there's two?
There will
Yes.
be two.
There'll be a north and a south.
There will be.
A north and a
So I
south.
think the communication is a little, like, this is another example of where there's like miscommunication,
Yes.
right?
Well, I think
Well-
there's been some shifts too, because there was a time, like when
There
we all
was-
sat down with Dean and he told us what we had next year, and
Yes.
that there was just gonna be one art teacher, but things change. and
Things
Mary
change, that's right.
Made that decision and.
When was that changed though?
When I learned there was only one.
Thank you, Gary. Okay. Great. That's right. That's awesome. Good. Good. But that would be great.
Okay, so I am still in the spirit of cooperation. I'm in the spirit of giving information and building support. If you have some more questions, and you want to meet with me, I'm happy to come and meet with you as a staff. Island Park, that goes the same for you. Work with David, Island Park, work with Jenny, and I'll come and work with a small group of teachers if you have more questions that you have. But thank you. I want to wish all of you a Happy New Year. I haven't said that yet. I want to wish you well in this new year. And I know that your children are waiting for you outside your classroom, so I won't keep you any further. Thank you.
Thank you.